Welcome to Golden Life Radio, where light rules and love reigns. I am your host, Connie L. Johnson, and this is a special episode of Golden Life Radio. So usually it is just an audible podcast, but I wanted to do something different because this is a special episode. So what I would like to do is just give some reflection and some commentary on a very important piece, documentary, Maya Angelou, Still I Rise. It was directed by Rita Coban Wack, and there's another director, I can't call the name right now, and I will give credit before this is all over. However, it is a very, very important piece of film that has impacted me in a special way. So the life of Maya Angelou, she's a very well-known poet, very well-known writer. However, this documentary does an awesome and amazing job of digging into who Maya Angelou was outside of just being an artist. It does a good job of explaining how she used her art, and so it has impacted me. Maya Angelou, period, is a shero of mine anyway. So we'll just go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to share the first clip that I want to share with you all. So here we go.
I told him I have no aria. He said, Father, don't you at least know one spiritual? And I thought, it's grits, groceries. Do I know a spiritual? What? And I just grinned and thought about Stamps, Arkansas, where from the time I was 3, Mama took me to church on Sunday. Then on Monday evening, we went to missionary meeting, Tuesday evening usher board meeting, Wednesday evening prayer meeting, Thursday evening choir practice. We went to church all the time. And at all those meetings, we sang. So I told the man, yes, I know it's spiritual. So I stood on the stage alone and sang, I am a poor pilgrim of sorrow. I'm lost in this wide world alone. I sang her song. When I finished, 4,500 Arabs jumped up and hit the floor and started to shout, well, Zion. And I looked stage right at the wings where the singers had sung, and they were looking at me like, so I said, I'm sorry. I mean, you sang Puccini and Bach and Beethoven and Haydn, and I sang what W.B. Du Bois called the sorrow songs. Songs written not by free and easy people, not by a leisure class. Songs written from the heart, written with their blood, written with the whips and the lash on their back. When I sung these songs, the people couldn't stop screaming. Then I began to think, I see. Now I see. When the people were passing out the big packets of land and money, my people had none of that to give me. But what they gave me, look at what they gave me. My Lord, look at what they gave me. It opens doors for me all over the world. It's a great blessing. So I ask you for your prayers. The heart.
So that clip speaks to me in a mighty, mighty way. So what I get from that particular clip, so this to kind of set up what happened. Maya Angelou has been hired as a singer in a show in Morocco. And all of the singers are, classically trained and, letting her know when she's out of G chord and this kind of thing. And she doesn't have anything to sing. Like there's been this impromptu performance, and she goes to the director and says, I don't have anything to perform. And he says, but don't you know a spiritual? And my favorite part of this, she said, is grits, groceries. I love it. But she does what I think is authentic to her and her experience. And that is to go back to Stamps, Arkansas, where her grandmother took her to church several times a week, and to, you know, to call in those experiences and those people who impacted her, although she's on this huge stage now in Morocco doing, you know, doing things, you know, that are outside of probably anything she imagined. And so that speaks to me particularly as an artist, because I am responsible for helping other people see me and experiences, and to tell the stories of people who very well might not ever have their story heard. So it's not just about me. You know, it's and it wasn't just about her. She talks extensively about her grandmother and her grandmother's influence, and you know how she ran the only, you know, colored store in the city, or in the town that we lived in. And so she calls in all of these people who influenced her and who pretty much made her to be who she is, you know, despite all of her, you know, all her tragedies and traumas, and that, because she had those too. But this particular scene of the film speaks to being authentically you as an artist. It seems like it's easy to feel almost less than when you have people around you who are classically trained. Like I know the feeling. I am not the best singer on the block. I am probably not the best writer on the block, but I am Connie Johnson. And my only responsibility is to use my gifts. Is to use exactly what gifts God has given me, to present to the world. And she did that, and she did it so eloquently. Um, and the response from a crowd of people who have never had that experience of going to church several times a week, who had never had the experience of living in, you know, segregated Arkansas. It's honestly an audience of people. Like, she's in Morocco, these are Arab speaking people, but what came from her heart, authentically her, was was so well received because it was authentically her. We don't have to fake it. All we have to do is be who we are. And that is exciting news for me. That is an exciting revelation, to know that Maya Angelou, the secret to Maya Angelou's sauce was to simply be Maya Angelou. And that says to me, all I have to do, all I have to do is be me. And that's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. And so there's another clip. Let's see if I can cue it up here. Give me just a second. And so I'm gonna talk about this next part. Well, so I'll say this. There's another part of Maya Angelou's journey that spoke to me. The fact that she started out dancing. She was a dancer at first. Honestly, she said if you watch the movie, she started out at strip clubs, but she didn't strip. She literally danced, where everybody else was kind of, you know, doing their thing as a stripper. So she started out dancing, then it led to singing calypso and doing all kinds of other things. Then she got into writing, and then acting and producing and directing. And so I have been told by a few people, I won't say several, by a few people, that I have to choose between being a poet and a writer and a singer and a songwriter and a community educator, and that I had to choose because you can't do everything. I beg to differ. I beg to differ because I see it in the example of Miss Maya Angelou. And so I am going to cue up this next clip here that I wanted to share. And here we go.
A love of justice. A love of doing what's right. She said to me, if you really have something to protest, you should be on the streets. My mother was leading this demonstration, and I was with her. We were protesting the damage done to people in the South who had gone down there for the freedom rides. And we had about 400 people. 3 blocks away, the mounted police pull into the street in formation. People in the demonstration began going to the sidewalk because in those days they ran over people. They stomped them, trampled them, and left their bodies in the street. And I was looking at my mother, and she kept on. And I said, Ma, come on, you're gonna get us killed. Let's go. She turned to me and she said, one person standing on the word of God is the majority. I looked at her and I thought, you have gone crazy. By the time the police got to us, there was probably 8 or 9 people out of the 400 behind us. The sergeant in charge started to walk past us. My mother pulled out this big hairpin out of her headband and stuck it in the sergeant's horse. The sergeant's horse neighed and reared up. The sergeant fell off. The people came back from the sidewalk and we finished that march. Whew. I hadn't seen courage like that brought right up to my face. She took me on a trip or two.
So here we have, okay, so the quote, one person standing on the word of God is the majority. That hit me so hard. What it says to me is that no matter what the crowd is doing, as long as I am standing in righteousness, as long as I am standing in faith, as long as I am standing in truth, and I am standing in love, God is with me, and I am a majority by myself. That is power. That is power. And so for her to share that moment, for her son to see her in a place of such courage and in a place of such sure, she was certain about the fact that she knew she was not operating alone. That is so powerful. It is so powerful that it says to me that I have no reason to fear. That is fearlessness. I have no reason whatsoever to fear in the face of opposition, because that was intense opposition that I don't think any of us, well, not even, it's opposition, and we have no reason to fear it. And honestly, even the first clip that I showed of her just standing out there and doing, just celebrating where she came from, celebrating exactly who she is and how she came to be, that within itself is fearlessness. So that's something that I took from this documentary, that fearlessness comes in many forms. It doesn't have to be brazen, and it doesn't have to be combative. Fearlessness is simply walking in truth, walking in love, walking in authenticity. Mind blown. Mind blown. And so the life of Maya Angelou, so she had many suitors. And so she would ebb and flow when it came to relationships. And that too is fearless. That is fearlessness, to love, to be involved in a relationship and it not work out, or it, or it fade, whichever way it, it ends, and then to love again, and then to love again, and to love again. That within itself too is fearlessness. I know it's not, very traditional in the way that we, that we look at relationships a lot of times, but she had the she was intuitive enough in herself to know what she wanted, who she wanted, how long she wanted them around, and she wasn't afraid to walk away when it wasn't what she needed or what she wanted anymore. To me, that's fearlessness. How many people continue to stay in relationships, stay in marriages that are going nowhere? How many people that remain stuck in in relationships, or relationships end and you never bounce back? Like, to love requires that fear, dissipates. To love requires that you look within yourself and the needs of the other person are to be met before your own, is to put your your needs and wants kind of on the background for the sake of the other. And so to do that on multiple occasions within her lifetime, I would say that is fearlessness, as well. Let's see. So storytelling, the power of storytelling is, it's almost as if it is the basis for humanity. The only thing I know anything about any other culture is through storytelling. The only way I know anything about, another human being is because of their story, right? Um, and that is ancient. That is legendary, and it's she embraced it. And really, that's what captivates me, is that she was able, at the core of who she was a storyteller, but she was able to do it through dance and through poetry and through, her books, and through, directing films and producing, shows and that kind of thing. So she told not only her story, but the story of so many others. And I find myself not only attracted to that idea of being a storyteller, but the responsibility of being a storyteller and telling stories with authenticity in whatever mechanism I am operating in. So whether I am singing, whether I am writing a poem, whether I'm, I've been dabbling a little bit in hip hop. So whether I'm, writing a couple bars or whatever, like, I am a storyteller. I make words, I make stories come alive for the hearer and the reader. And that is power, and it is also a responsibility. So I'm going to cue up this clip. Hold on 1 second.
That black people couldn't even eat vanilla ice cream. And so it made everybody laugh. And they asked me to tell a story, tell another.
She was absolutely captivating. And she just told these stories in a very matter of fact, there was nothing show-offy about it.
Judy Pfeiffer, the next morning, called Random House and talked to Bob Loomis. This was 1968.
She called me one day and she said, at their house the night before, they had a party, and this woman, Maya Angelou, was there. Now, in that group, there's some wonderful talkers. Jules, I think Philip Roth was at that party. But Judy said this woman told the best stories, people she'd known. There were stories of adventure that she had. They were stories about her career in nightclubs in California, on and on. And she said she's got a book in her of some kind. Well, I hate to tell you how many times I've heard that. But I called she was in California, I believe then. I brought up the subject. She was not warm to it.
He said, would you write an autobiography? I said, no, thank you. No, I don't. I write poetry and I have plays. I've written a 10-episode series for PBS. So I went out to San Francisco to produce it.
Hello, my name is Maya Angelou.
And Bob Loomis called me about 3 or 4 times. Oh, he harassed me for about 6 months.
Now, in those days, the younger people and somewhat unknown people did not write books. I called several more times, got nowhere.
If you get to heaven before
And finally, he said, Miss Angelou, I won't call you again. I said, that's good. He said, because, writing autobiography as literature is almost impossible. I said, well, in that case, I'll try.
So here's another thing that sparks something in me from this scene. Maya Angelou is invited by James Baldwin to a dinner party. This is after Martin Luther King is assassinated. And he goes to check on her and she's a wreck. And he says, put on some clothes, go take a shower, put on some clothes. I'm taking you somewhere. And she goes to this dinner party. And she began, everybody around the party is kind of telling stories. And this Maya in her authentic self is telling stories of her childhood, telling stories of, you saw the clip here. And she's telling these stories. And someone is so captivated by that they call this, this Mr. Loomis. And he is convinced enough about her ability to continue calling her. And she turns him down. But what captures me is about being in the right place at the right time. She was a wreck when Mr. Baldwin asked her to come to that party. And she could have very easily said, I'm not going anywhere. I am depressed. I am sad. I am not feeling like a party. But she goes. And not only does she go, she's in the moment enough to participate in the storytelling that's happening around her. It's almost like she comes alive again within this party setting. And even in the state of her sadness and in the state of, her being, her mourning a friend, she comes alive in a way that is so impressive that somebody else is captivated to want her to tell her story that much more. Being at the right place at the right time. Because what happens next is she pens I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And that book, if you continue to watch that piece of the documentary, you have John Singleton, you have Alfred Woodard, Oprah Winfrey, all of these, people, and those are people who, we know of, those are, names that we know. But millions of people are affected and impacted by her story from that one night at a party. Being at the right place at the right time, like there is a synergy that creates opportunity when we are prepared for the next. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that she moved into the next. And so there's one last piece. There's one last piece that I want to share. It is toward the very end of the film, and it speaks to young people, which is a passion of mine. And I'll talk about it. Hold on, let's get it queued up here. Here we go.
Just with the gifts that we have to offer. You alone are enough.
I must tell you first that I have you in my heart. I see myself in you as a young person in sound. I hope you see yourselves in me. Get your work done. Study. Put it in the brain. This machine will do anything for you. Anything. It will take you to China if you want to go. It will take you to New York if you want to go. It will make you principal of this school if you want it to. You understand? Somebody is going to make laws for this entire land. Is it going to be you? Is it going to be you? The chance is there. It's so exciting.
Everybody needs somebody in their life who can.
So here we are with Miss Angelou speaking to a group of young people in her city, in the city where she grew up, Stamps, Arkansas. And prior to just the scene just before that, Oprah Winfrey is talking about how one thing that Maya Angelou told her and expressed to her is that you are enough. You are enough. And another thing that strikes me, so you are enough. It has taken me almost 44 years to know and believe that I am enough. What if we, as a mass collection of adults, imparted it into children from as early as they can talk and walk to know that they are enough? I am of the belief that that one sentence, you are enough, 3 words, would greatly benefit communities, greatly decrease violence, greatly decrease the dysfunction that we see. Because what we have and what we're seeing are people who do not know or believe that they are enough. That's powerful. Another thing that jumped out at me is by this time, Maya Angelou has written I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It has done all kinds of amazing things. Yet she is in a classroom in Stamps, Arkansas, speaking to children. And so what that tells me is, as an artist, as a storyteller, I have a responsibility to impart into the next generation. She was all about legacy. So she always talked about her grandmother and what her grandmother imparted into her. And you see there where she's taking her son with her to all sorts of events to impart into him. And then she goes and she imparting into children who only know her name. I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to impart into others, to impart to a generation that is coming behind. And so I am grateful for this piece of art. I am so grateful for it. I know that it is, it's more than just a documentary. And so I say Thank you to the directors. Thank you for anyone who had a hand in getting it produced. And this is Golden Lyfe Radio, where light rules and love reigns. My name is Connie Johnson. I have been your host. I hope you enjoy. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at I am Connie40. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.